If music is subjective, how is somebody going to determine what the top 10 best Phil Collins songs are? Today is the day somebody is going to try to do it, and I'm going to give you the definitive list. I'm just joking. It's subjective. You're going to have to tell me if you agree with me. Now, I've been listening to Phil Collins for a very long time, and we celebrate Phil Collins' birthday in this house with a cake. And so this was something overdue. It's something I've been stewing in my head for a long time, and I think I've done it. I think I've picked the top 10 best Phil Collins songs, and I had to leave out so many great songs. And I'm going to do a video another day about like the 10 best underrated Phil Collins songs, because I really wanted to focus on songs that are popular or songs that should be popular, songs that were singles. I'm going to pick the 10 best Phil Collins songs, and I think you're going to agree with a lot of them, and I think you might disagree with some of them. And we have some albums that are overrepresented, and we have some albums that aren't represented at all. So let's just dive in. Coming in at number 10 is Hand in Hand from the album Face Value. Okay, he's starting with an instrumental tune. I know this is weird, but I've been listening to this song, especially live on the Serious Hits tour and on the Dance Into the Light tour. They open those tours with this song, and it's so good. It's got the CR78 beat in the background, which is similar to Dutch's and similar to In the Air Tonight, and just this incredible world sound that Peter Gabriel would do later and Phil would do more on Dance Into the Light. And it's great. Is Droned a great song? It's okay. I like instrumental songs. That was his Brian Eno type tune, but Hand in Hand is amazing. And when the drums come in and the horns come in, and live, it just has this gradual build. And on Dance Into the Light, he would start at the back of the arena and work his way to the stage. And it was just, it's such a powerful tune. I absolutely love it. And I love instrumental tunes. And I wish that Phil had done more of them, because sometimes he didn't do a lot of them, but he did do some of them. And obviously, he did a lot with Genesis, the Brazilian, and What Grilla. With Phil Collins, he did Droned and Hand in Hand, which I really, really love. He did The West Side, which is pretty good. He didn't do any instrumentals on No Jacket Required. And then he did Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, which isn't that great. It's cool, but I think it bloated that record a little too much, and it's not in a great track list, and not a great part of the album, which I'll talk about when we do an album review about Seriously. And then he didn't do an instrumental on Both Sides. He didn't do an instrumental on Dance Into the Light, which is a real shame, because it's all these like Latin sounds and world sounds on Dance Into the Light. It would have been a great album, because it's so bloated as is. It would have been a great album for an instrumental tune. He could have done it instead of River So Wide. Well, I like that song, but that could have been an instrumental. He did them in Tarzan, and then he didn't do them in Testify. So I love Phil Collins instrumentals. I love Genesis instrumentals, and Hand in Hand is Phil Collins' best instrumental song. So good. I love it when it's played live. That's my number 10. So that might surprise some people, just like my number 9 might surprise some people. Son of Man from the Tarzan soundtrack. I'm sorry. You're going to start to agree with some of these once we get going, but I'm sorry if you think that song isn't good, or if you think that song isn't as good as maybe Strangers Like Me or You'll Be in My Heart, but Son of Man is a banger. And is it not his fastest song? I should have checked the BPMs, and maybe when I edit this, I will. But I think that's his fastest song. Like, is it faster than Wear My Hat? Maybe not. Is it faster than Susudio or Don't Lose My Number? I'll have to check on that, but it's a fast song. And the demo for it is pretty good, but the song that ends up in the movie and on the soundtrack is just incredible. Like, the rhythm and the melody is so good. I know a lot of people who grew up with the Tarzan soundtrack, like people even younger than me, are big fans of that song. And so I'm curious if you would even put that in your top 10 or top 25 songs. But I think Son of Man, and I'll actually include it on my underrated songs because it wasn't a single, but Son of Man is one of my favorite Phil Collins songs. So again, this is my list. I think it's the definitive list if you're asking me, but this is my list. And so I'm putting Son of Man at number 9. Number 8 is a song I've already talked about on this channel, and that's Every Day. Every Day is from Both Sides, and it's a fantastic song. In fact, somebody on this channel alerted me to the fact that the intro, which is a slow, non-tempo, like doesn't really have a tempo to it, some just these chords improvised before the drum machine kicks in and the song officially starts. That section was allegedly influenced by That's Just the Way It Is from Bruce Hornsby, which is a fantastic song from the same era. So that's kind of cool. And when you hear it, you hear it once you hear it. So Every Day is on my list because I think it's one of my favorite Phil Collins songs. I think it's one of the best, if not the best song on Both Sides. I was kind of going back and forth in this slot with Can't Turn Back the Years, because Can't Turn Back the Years on tour, like on the Farewell tour and on the Dance Into the Light tour, Can't Turn Back the Years was really nice. How Brad Cole started it with this ambient sound, synth sounds. And so I really like Can't Turn Back the Years. And I was kind of pulled in that direction because I recently heard that Phil Collins' favorite song that he wrote is Can't Turn Back the Years. So I was thinking about it, but for me, Every Day is such a good song. It's just this song that can go on forever. Just this easy, steady, mid-tempo beat. I've always talked about mid-tempo songs with Phil Collins. It's also interesting because as a ballad, he was famous for Against All Odds and Separate Lives and One More Night. And then, of course, even songs, it's to a certain extent like Do You Remember or I Wish It Would Rain Down. So this is the first ballad, quote unquote, that he did on in the new era where there's like no saxophone solo, you know, there's no screeching Daryl solo either. So it's just kind of treading into new territory, and I love Every Day. So that's why I had to put it on my list at number 8. Number 7, and I'm filling this bottom 4, and I think once we get to 6 and beyond, I'll have a lot more people agree with me, but this bottom 4 is kind of more of the underrated tunes that I personally absolutely love, Least You Can Do, which is from Testify. And so on my list, Least You Can Do is the newest song in his collection, and it's such a good song. It's classic Phil Collins. It's the best track on Testify by a mile. It's written by Phil and Daryl, which is really special. And it's a song that totally could have been on Both Sides. It totally could have been on Tarzan. It totally could have been on But Seriously. It's just as classic Phil. And it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And even though it's a mid-tempo song, it still just gets bigger and bigger. And he sings it with more and more passion. His vocals sound amazing. I'm curious if it came from a Brother Bear session or a leftover from a Tarzan session, because it sort of has that Disney vibe a little bit. But it's honestly, it's so great to hear a classic Phil Collins song, because on Testify, there was some misses, and this is a huge tune. And when I put together a mix, or I have a random Phil Collins mix happening, and this song comes on, oh, I just love it. Any time of year, I'm always happy to hear Least You Can Do. And that's in my number 7 slot. Number 6 is another song I've talked about on this channel, and that is Doesn't Anybody Stay Together Anymore. It's hard to pick a great song or the best song from No Jacket Required, and this isn't my only song from No Jacket Required on this list, but I know that this is a fan favorite amongst so many people. It is such a great song. He did that really slow version I forgot about, but I watched it recently on the But Serious tour when he played the CP70. So pretty. Doesn't Anybody Stay Together is just such a unique song. First of all, lyrically, it's really special, right? Because he has all these love songs and he has these breakup songs. And now this is a song about breakups. It's about too many people breaking up. I think that's really interesting. And it came from a real place in his life where he was going through marriage breakups, and he had a lot of peers who were going through marriage breakups. It was also in this time when divorce was like more socially accepted. And so they were happening more often. And so it's a very interesting song lyrically, but then musically, it's also very interesting. It fits perfectly on No Jacket Required, but it is very unique, very much like Inside Out. It's unique in its own way, and it has a gorgeous bridge and a gorgeous melody. I always love to hear it. I love side B of No Jacket Required. So it's the second song on side B. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I just think it's a great tune. And I know a lot of people who would put it on their list. And I wanted this list to be not just the hits, although we're getting into the hits, but I wanted it to be the hits and then some deep cuts that I know some true fans out there love. Okay, are you tracking with me? Let's move on. We're now in the top 5. Number 5, And I go back and forth because this could be number one for me, is Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. And I've heard some people say in the comments or on Facebook that they don't like Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. And if that's you, you need to unsubscribe right now. No, I'm joking. Please don't unsubscribe. Start a new account and subscribe again. I'm surprised that people don't love this song. And why I put this song so high on my list. Not only do I love it lyrically and musically, I think it's super inventive. Stylistically, what the heck is happening with this song? What is this song? It's the same thing as Hanging Long Enough. What are we hearing? Is it pop music? Sure. Is it big band? Kinda. Is it Motown? Kinda. Is it rock and roll with a screeching guitar solo that like ends out the song with like feedback? Yeah, it's all those things. And that's why Something Happened on the Way to Heaven, which by the way, is a super long title. It's very ambiguous about what it's about. Everyone's singing along with the lyrics, but not exactly sure what it means, that you can't take it with you when you go. It's an interesting song. It sounds like a breakup's about to happen. He's pleading with her but you know, who knows? I've never really paid too much attention to it just because it's such a big song. Reminds me very similar to Easy Lover in that it's just a massively big tune with these big, kind of like funk music where it's like this big intro, or music that you would hear at the beginning of a football game or a basketball game with this big, massive intro. And then whenever it goes into that verse where it's like, bum, bum, that's just such a great moment. Gosh, a lot of times this is my favorite Phil Collins song. And now as I'm talking, why didn't I put it higher on my list? I should have put it higher on my list, but it's such a great song. I also go between this and Hanging Long Enough because this could have opened But Seriously, but it's deeper in the record. It's only track 4, I believe, or track 5. Hanging Long Enough is also a great tune. Something Happened on the Way to Heaven is number 5. Number 4 is Sussudio. I mean, you can't have a list without Sussudio. I think the people who don't love Sussudio are similar people who don't love the song Invisible Touch. They came out around the same time and they're very iconic and they've attached themselves to Phil Collins' image. And those two songs are very synth and drum machine heavy. And I believe that for people who maybe don't like that style, that they kind of don't put Sussudio into their favorite Phil Collins songs and they don't put Invisible Touch into their favorite Genesis songs. But I think it's worth including in here because it's such a danceable track. It's such a great upbeat track. Sonically, they've achieved something. This is peak Hugh Padgham and Phil Collins. This is the peak of them figuring out that compressed reverb sound, the gated reverb. It's them figuring out the drum machines, combining different drum machines, using the best drum machines, the most analog drum machines, somehow taking these analog drum machines, saturating them in the console and making them sound so fat that the fact that I put a record that was pressed 40 years ago onto the turntable today and it sounds unbelievable. I have an extended mix, which I showed in my Phil Collins vinyl episode. That is a fantastic sounding version of the song that goes on for like 8 or 10 minutes. Sussudio is just, from a production standpoint, is really great. There's 2 other things I want to say about why Sussudio is high on my list. First of all, and the 2 reasons are actually the same reason, and that it's bold and it's brave. It's bold for one because of the lyrics, and we talk about this in the song review I did, is that Sussudio means nothing, that he was singing along. It was a mumble track. It was an improvised word that just fit the tempo and the meter of the song that he meant to replace later, and he just couldn't find a replacement. So instead of shoehorning a bad phrase into those syllables, or instead of scrapping the track altogether, he took a lot of guts and just said, well, what did the record label say? He just said, we're going to release this song titled, as the opening song on the album, titled Sussudio, a word that means nothing. I mean, that blows my mind. And that's what makes this song, I think, so audacious, is that he's just like, we're just making up a new word. Something that people would do more today. But back then, I'm so curious what the record label thought. I think All of No Jacket Required is bold because we come off of this instrumental, classical sounding ending of Hello, I Must Be Going and Hello, I Must Be Going at face value are very similar. And then you come into this dance, this thriller sounding record, this nightclub sounding record with a song title that means nothing, is not in the English language. That must have been very bold. I was like 3 years old when this came out, or maybe 2, or maybe 1, or maybe 0. I don't know how old I am, and I don't know how old this record is. I just think it would have been a really bold move to come out with this track in the same way that it was bold that he shifted gears again in But Seriously. We'll talk about that another day. Sussudio is number 4. Number 3, so it looks like I am giving a lot of credence here to No Jacket Required because number 3 is Take Me Home. And so we're going from the beginning of No Jacket Required right to the end of No Jacket Required. I love Take Me Home because of the beat. I love that rhythm. And one of the things I love about Phil Collins and his use of drum machines is that he would never put together a 4/4, like a standard rhythm where it was like hat, 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 snare, and kicks on the usual spots. Instead, it was almost like he just pressed his arm down and pressed all these random buttons because you have this rhythm with Take Me Home, which involves a 909 and another synth. And I'm sure you'll remind me in the comments where the hat or the shaker's coming from on a different drum machine. But he's got this rhythm that's just really unique. And it has this like perpetual ending to it. And that's why it works so well on live shows, is because it would be this bop, 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 and it would be this beat that would play out and everyone knew what was going to happen. And then it moved into this like chant of Take Me Home. It's such a cool song. I always find it weird, like as we find out about this guy living in an insane asylum, not seeing the light of day, and people not understanding him and him just wanting to go home. I feel like it's always weird that he ended the concerts with it because most people just thought it was a guy who was lost. And I kind of feel like I wish that Phil had never told people that it was about a guy in an insane asylum, because it's just this like concept of you being an alien somewhere, people not understanding you, and you wanting to go back to where you're comfortable and where people understand you, and go back to a time in your life where that was the case. So that's what I feel like this song is about. And I think a lot of people, when they're singing it at the end of a concert, that's what they're thinking about. Either way, the production on this song and the melody and this slow, intense build. And again, it's a mid-tempo song. It's not fast, but it's not slow. And that's what the drum machine does to these songs like Every Day, or Do You Remember, or Take Me Home, is it just kind of creates this constant beat. And I could listen to Take Me Home forever. And again, just like Sussudio, it sounds so rich. I blast this in my car with the windows down. Even though it's 40 years old, it sounds beautiful. That's in the number 3 slot. The number 2 slot would be my number 1 favorite song, but I didn't put it at the number 1 of this list, but it is my favorite Phil Collins song of all time, and that's Find a Way to My Heart. The reason I didn't put it at number 1, I'll explain when I talk about number 1. But Find a Way to My Heart is a beautiful song, and I always love seeing on message boards and on Facebook and on the YouTube comments when people talk about this song, because if you're a diehard Phil Collins song, then this is probably one of your favorite songs as well. It was never a single. It's deep on the album. It wasn't played on the Serious Hits tour, which I was upset about. It was played on both sides, maybe, definitely on Dance Into the Light. He played it more often, and it was like a more upbeat urban version, which I wasn't a huge fan of, but I'll take. It's not as slow and brooding as on But Serious. But the song on But Serious and the chorus. I forgot to mention the other thing I love about Find a Way to My Heart is the drum beat. Instead of going like this, it's like this. So cool. And the bridge, which kind of goes into a bit of an upbeat breakdown, and the pre-chorus on this song is just so special. Lyrically, is it a love song? Is it about a song about commitment? Is it a song to his children? Because at the end of the record, we get into All of My Life, which is about his dad, and Father to Son, which is about his son. So is this just about relationships and friendships and love? I don't know. I absolutely think this is such a beautiful song. I always love to hear it. I always love to blast it so loud. I think But Seriously, But Seriously is my favorite album. And so to have this as the closer, I think it's my favorite closer. I mean, Take Me Home is close, but it's such a great song. And so for me, it's actually my favorite Phil Collins song of all time. It's a song I could listen to on repeat for the rest of my life, and I probably will. But it's not in my number 1 slot. In my number 1 slot is In the Air Tonight. And that should surprise everyone. If you're clicking through this, you probably expected that would be on everybody's list. And I have to put it at number 1, even though it's not my favorite Phil Collins song. It's in my top 10. I will say it's in my top 10. But I personally wouldn't have put it at number one, but I have to from a music standpoint and from what it means as a song in Phil Collins's catalog. It was the song that springboarded his career, that gave him confidence as a songwriter outside of Genesis and back in Genesis as well. It made him super famous. It made him super rich, and people are still discovering and talking about that song today. So it has to be the best Phil Collins song because it's just so meaningful. It invented, in a weird way, it solidified or invented the gated reverb. It nowhere on Intruder, on Peter Gabriel's record, did we hear it in such a way that we hear it on In the Air Tonight. It's where it was made famous. It's where it was perfected. They went against the record label and didn't want to put like a drum machine throughout the song. They wanted it to be slow and brooding. There's this Prophet synth, and then there's this piano throughout. And there's a vocoder. And I remember reading about how the record company was just so amazed by this song. And they would play this demo to other musicians and say, this is the new bar. And the song hadn't even come out yet. It was like, this is the new bar. If you want to do something interesting and exciting. And I think that's still true today. It was such an inventive song of just this ominous brooding about a song that nobody really knew what it was about. And turns out Phil didn't even know what it was about. And people had their own theories, of course, which we'll talk about another day. To do this and then to smash through the windows with that drum solo into the drum beat. But In the Air Tonight has to be up there as the best Phil Collins song because it was just so bold, so inventive, and it set the career off in such a great direction. And again, you know, it's 40 or 50 years old almost, and I can listen to it any day of the year and any time of day, and I always love to hear that song. And live, it was such an exciting moment. He'd walk around with the headset, and then he would get back to the drums just in time. A brilliant song, and that's why it's in my number one slot. Let's go back over them in case you forgot. Number 10 was Hand in Hand from Face Value. Number 9 was Son of Man from Tarzan, which I'm sure some of you guys would disagree with my bottom here. 8 was Every Day from Both Sides. Number 7 was Least You Can Do from Testify. Number 6 was Doesn't Anybody Stay Together Anymore from No Jacket Required. Number 5 was Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. Both those songs are his longest titles, I'm sure. Number 4 is Sussudio, the classic hit. Number 3 is Take Me Home, my third song from No Jacket Required. Number 2 is Find a Way to My Heart, which is my favorite song, and I love it. And number 1 is In the Air Tonight. I got to hear from you. In the comments below, leave me your top 10. Let me know what you agree and what you disagree. If there's any songs that you think are absolutely atrocious on my list, or did I miss any on my list, let me know. Thanks for watching.